Welcome. I am Tria Wild Rose. Welcome to this channel. It's nice to be here and just slow things down. As you know, when we are working with Instagram or LinkedIn or any of these other platforms, you have a limited time to kind of get your messaging in, and it doesn't allow for the slowed down spaciousness that can happen on mediums like YouTube, where we can really slow things down and create a bit more spaciousness. So welcome if you're new here. Welcome if you have been traveling along with me and just enjoying connecting. There's so much beauty and value in that, and I really appreciate your presence, and whoever is watching this is co-creating this with me. So your role is extremely important. Last week I did an extended messaging around an Instagram video that I did about, as many of us are on this healing path, where our nervous system is repairing and healing and learning to rest more in the ventral vagal activation system. Because the reality is we're going to continue to move in and out of fight or flight, of shutdown, of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic response. It's just kind of the nature of where we're at as a species. However, what we're becoming more accustomed to, more curated, more refined in, is our capacity to return home. So in polyvagal theory, Stephen Porges, and then adapted in a very therapeutic lens by Deb Dana. Highly recommend them both if you're interested in more information. And talk about the ventrovagal part of our nervous system as being our home. So this is our place where we experience safety and rest and a sense of relaxation, a sense of love. Really, what it all comes down to is a sense of love. And as many of us are learning to cultivate more capacity to rest here, we are noticing that perhaps our sexual experiences is not exactly translating into this more capacity for rest and digest and relaxation that we have. And we might even interpret that as boring. So last week we talked about gene key 59, the dragon's genome, which is all about moving from the shadow of dishonesty to intimacy, which is cultivated through honesty, being honest with ourselves first and foremost, and then taking that forward and being honest in other relationships, particularly your intimate ones when it comes to sexuality. And this was important because it just reveals this evolution process that sexuality is currently undergoing. Like, I believe, and I love Richard Rudd's body of work, that literally our genes are going through a genetic cleansing, so to speak, where we're moving from sexuality that is survival based with good intentions, good purpose, the purpose of reproduction. The purpose of Eros energy, this desire and fight for life, to continue creating life. And we have not been separate from that. As sexuality has been functioning in the chakras below the heart, so the lower chakras, not because they're worse than the upper ones, it's just because they are below the heart. As sexuality has been functioning from these chakras, it's been more about survival, right? And survival of the species is procreation. So I feel like we can all agree on these points, even though some of the threads become more esoteric that I speak to. And in this Gene Key 59, it is through honesty. So we're moving from dishonesty, the ways in which we've lied to ourselves, the ways in which we've lied to each other, all of the hiding and withholding that we do in relationships, which can create a dynamic tension that can feel erotic and alive in the fear, because fear creates this tension that puts us in this survival aspect of our nervous system, which is an activation of our nervous system, and then we translate that into chemistry and desire and love. And we've been doing this for a long time. And now we are so lucky and blessed, as far as I am concerned, to be living in a time where we get to transcend our fear-based turn-on. If that's what you want. Not everyone is into that, and I just feel like, again, in relationship with Gene Key 59 and intimacy, moving from dishonesty to honesty, then you just need to be honest with yourself. Like, no, Tria, I'm into the drama, adrenaline addicted cycles. I love how it feels in my body and my nervous system. I don't mind being in fight or flight. I might be an adrenaline junkie. I might get off on a lot of risk-taking behaviors. And I just like that. And however, the question becomes that if you are also a person who says, I really want to find my person and I really want to have a healthy long-term relationship, but it's not happening, then the invitation is to evaluate how evolving your sexuality and your erotic relational blueprint could be the answer to you actually being able to sustain long-term, healthy, secure, and juicy love. But it requires consistency. It requires effort. It requires awareness, and it requires discipline. It's not easy to sit with the discomfort of what you might consider to be boring, especially if you're an adrenaline junkie or a risk taker. Or if you're someone like me who's grown up with so much nervous system activation, so much instability, foster homes, being adopted, abuse in my adoptive family, back into the foster care system, sex trafficked. Like, I have a nervous system that has literally been getting off on the drama. And yet there was another part of me that was longing for a love that I had never known. Really, really longing. But I really struggled to have enough spaciousness to step back from what I was acting out in my relationships to realize that I was a main character in that drama cycle, that adrenaline addicted cycle. So while one part of me had a yearning for a new experience, my nervous system was so habituated to the drama and the great sex. You know, as I said in that one Instagram video, the question becomes, what is the greatest part? If somebody asked you what was great about your relationship, the first thing that would come up is sex. But then if you were to reflect more deeply, if anything else was great, you would struggle to identify other areas that weren't toxic or dysfunctional. So interestingly enough, recently after that video, and the universe has your back, synchronicities are everywhere, especially when we begin to program our mind to slow down and body to slow down enough to notice them. So I choose this movie called Deep Water. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's with Ben Affleck and Ana de Armas. What an incredible movie, especially because we're working with this theme. And essentially it's a hyper toxic and dysfunctional relationship. I'm going to break down a few interesting scenes from a psychological lens, because my background is as a I have training in transpersonal psychology, and beyond that, I was a therapist for many years. Just recently, I decided to transition into being a therapeutic coach, because I love the accountability piece with clients. However, I come with this psychological lens, not just from my training, but from my a desire since a child, where I loved trying to understand the psyche of people who committed crimes, and murders and stuff. So in this movie, Ana de Armas, who plays Melinda, presents as this wild woman, unpredictable, uncontrollable. And Ben Affleck has a subdued persona. He's performing peace, acting like some of her behaviors aren't toxic, and using the argument that he just wants her to be who she is. And while he's communicating this verbally, the experience in the movie is that he doesn't actually want her to be fully who she is. And at some level, she gets this, because at one point she says to him, I get turned on by people who accept me for who we are. And she's actually speaking to, her and Ben Affleck in these characters were just at this party, and she is blatantly flirting with this other young man, and Ben Affleck is watching, and other people at the party are saying, like, what's going on? Like, why are you putting up with that? And he's just like, nothing's really happening between them. She's just being who she is. But you get the sense that they're underneath that performance of peace, there's some sort of seething energy. So the movie continues on, and the most audacious things are happening. Like, she's inviting these men that she's having affairs with over for dinner, and Ben Affleck, in his character of Vic, is participating in these dinners, and it becomes more evident that he's jealous. There's a jealousy with his wife's affairs. But still, the mask, or the performance of peace, is he's welcoming, he's initiating conversations. He will play with this kind of passive aggressiveness, where he said to one of these guys that he killed the last person who was friends with his wife. And he played this out all the way to the end. And in the movie, you think that he's joking about it, and you learn other things later on. So just staying with these dynamics a bit more, and really the invitation here is to notice how obviously at the extreme, these toxic nervous system activation or complete repression, as in Ben Affleck's character Vic, where he's repressing his jealousy and his anger so much that eventually it comes out in this killer instinct. But they're also getting off on this underneath the surface, because there's one scene where she so Ben Affleck's character Vic asks another woman to dance, and then on the car ride home, Melinda, his wife's character, is asking him all these questions. Did he enjoy dancing with her? Does he think that she's a great lay? Not in those words. And then all of a sudden she's getting turned on. And they proceed to, have sex, perform some sexual acts on the ride home. So just very interesting evidence for where turn on is being sourced, in the jealousy, in the fear, in the anger. But Melinda, this character, also wants Ben Affleck's aliveness, which she speaks to throughout the movie. It's like, if you were married, she says to him, if you were married to anybody else, you'd be bored, you know? And in her is, Carl Jung speaks to the anima and the animus. And I believe the anima speaks to the feminine principle and the animus is the masculine. And these principles exist within all of us. However, when our anima, so the feminine, or our animus is not fully integrated, we will magnetize it in other people. And so in terms of this relationship, his wife is a clear projection of his unintegrated anima. She's wild, she's uncontrollable, she's alive, she's expressive, she's, she's the wild feminine. She's the archetype of the wild feminine. And everything is, if you watch the movie, everything that he's repressed is existing in her. And then for her unintegrated animus is his consistency, his showing up, his stability. He's really the one taking care of the home and even their child, making sure she gets to bed okay. Like, he's really the one providing that structure and that stability. So the movie continues on, and ultimately this seething, she continues on with these affairs, inviting these men over. He continues to perform peace, and I just want her to be her, and that he's totally okay with it. And then he's going and killing these men. Right? So our shadow will find a way to express itself. Mm-hmm. But she knows that he's doing this. And she even says something in the movie like, Ben Affleck says to her, Melinda, the character Melinda, his wife, "Are you afraid of me?" And she says, "No, because you're killing for me." Anywho, I wanted to just bring this movie forward because it kind of blew my mind that I ended up choosing this movie and I didn't really know what it was about, when all of this is alive in me. And there's a new program being birthed, and I just found it very interesting. So it's called Deep Water. Yeah. And I highly recommend it if you are interested in exploring, these dynamics that are really amped up level of toxicity and dysfunction. But I actually love movies and shows where I can kind of break down some of the psychology or see how it relates, is symbolic for our day-to-day lives, and especially when it relates to relationships. So I think that's all I want to say about that movie. But the point is, or how I would like to kind of weave this all together, is we're in an extraordinary time. We're in an extraordinary time where when we stop being afraid of each other, we're going to transcend attraction, because the polarities won't have a need for the magnetism of polarities anymore. And really, this will be through our own integration of our internal anima and animus, right? So it begs the question whether attraction will naturally flourish from wholeness. My wholeness will magnetize somebody else who's whole, and from there, we're not working with the polarities in the shadows or in a survival-based mistaken chemistry anymore. We're working with a new erotic relational template based on wholeness and inner union, where we are bringing these lower chakra energies up into the heart, like many tantric practices, and then creating a whole new transcendent experience of sexuality. And that's exciting. It's curious and exciting because you can, I tell you that it literally feels like this gene is working on us right now, gene key 59. And I'm super curious how it's going to continue to evolve and show up. And I'm here, and I am available to be at the forefront of this leadership and to support you to align what it is you say you want. You want that healthy, juicy, long-term relationship. Well, what needs to happen in order to be in alignment and therefore integrity to experience it? And if you're in a long-term partnership, you might notice that as your nervous system is repairing, your turn-ons are different. And so you get to work with the new erotic relational blueprint as well to teach yourself how to cultivate polarity from using the masculine and feminine polarities in your relationship, in your couple body, and your presence as a turn on, and conscious play, right? It's not from a shadowy, manipulative, I'm going to do some psychological tricks on you, but from, hey, let's work with this energy and cultivate this dynamic tension with consciousness and awareness and mutual respect and integrity and communication and honesty and intimacy. So would love to invite us just to take a deep breath together as all of that lands and integrates, and you leave behind whatever is just not resonating for you. That's totally okay. And allowing it all to settle into your heart and your womb, if you're a woman, your hara, if you're a man. And in the days, weeks, months to come, giving yourself permission to pay more attention to your relational dynamics and how you are sourcing attraction, how you are sourcing desire. And really just committing to yourself to be radically honest if that is what you want, or if you're desiring a new experience, and making the commitment to take the steps and do the work involved in embodying a new relational erotic blueprint. So just allowing this to percolate and saturate, and giving yourself permission for more to be revealed. And if you are ready to go deeper and to be the first to be one of those rare individuals who are like, yes, 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 I am all in for a new erotic relational blueprint. Show me how. Then let's connect. My website will be down below. And applications will be opening soon for a new exciting program called Embodying Your Erotic Relational Blueprint. Okay, until next time, I love you.